questions. Um, you know, I was at the gas pump the other day, and I wasn't, literally gassing myself up, as the kids would say. I was just gassing it up. Which, by the way, these gas pumps at these ones that you pay 18 cents more than if you go to just about any other reasonable gas station, for no fucking reason. Oh, because you had Techron. Okay, whatever the fuck that means. But yeah, I was at the gas pump, and let's just say I was asked a question at the pump that I've been asked plenty of times. But I was in some type of mood that, not even mood, but I was in some type of mindset. I was in a very observational, sit back and just observe the day type of mood. And yeah, I'll just say the chevron. All the chevrons, the shells, they ask the same thing. But you notice how they don't actually have anything to back up the question that's asked. So you insert your card and it says, the first thing, it doesn't ask you after. The first thing it asks, do you want a car wash today? It's like, if I wanted a car wash today, I would be at the car wash. So when it said, I'm like, what happened? What would happen if I clicked yes? Did I click yes? No, because I don't want a situation where, actually, service not available. Like, wait, you said yes? Oh, shit. It's like, if I say yes to it, you're going to take me to that shack out back and you're going to Cameron Diaz on Bad Teacher My Vehicle? Probably not. You have one employee, like a 40-year-old Indian dude. Not stereotyping. That's just what the situation was. Okay. Can't believe I've had a like, what is he going to do? Like, he has 3 customers in line buying cigarillos or whatever the fuck people buy. Lottery tickets in there on a Sunday? Yeah, it was a Sunday. And what is he going to do? Stop what he's doing in line and be like, hold on, stop. Someone out there wants a car wash. I'll be back in 18 minutes. It's like, no. What? It's like, is it a self-serve car wash? Do I pay at the pump for the car wash? Oh, and let me tell you the most stark thing. I'm not even joking in this situation, but I've also noticed in most of these gas stations, because there's a lot of car washes in the world. A lot of ones in very small radius. I don't know about where y'all live, but in the state of Georgia, there seems to be a car wash of any self-serving sort. I would say probably like every 2 miles. Probably less. There's some multiple side by side for competition. But literally to the left is literally a full functioning business with the freaking employees, with the drive-through neutral things, the vacuum sections when you exit. And you think I'm going to turn that down for $5 or whatever the fuck it costs these days to take a chance out back at a Chevron? I'm going to probably say not. At the car wash. It's like, how are you going to sit there and offer a car wash when there's full businesses for car wash? I come to you for gas. It's a convenience store. If I want to go in and get me a Diet Vanilla Pepsi, then that's what I'll do. Like, this is what happened. We're trying to make businesses too versatile. Versatility, highly overrated. Focus on what you're good at. McDonald's, I don't care for your now, like, all these extra cool chicken bullshit sandwiches. I don't need Taco Bell to be serving chicken wings. What's going on? What happened to stay in your lane? Burger King's got freaking like spicy nugs. I hate when people say nugs, but you get the drift. It's like now all these places, you got to be versatile. It's like, no, McDonald's burgers, McDonald's Big Mac, Burger King Whopper, gas stations gas, car washes do car washing things. But hey, welcome to episode 108 of the Off and Beat podcast. I'm your host, Clint. Jesus, I really need to shorten these opens. But yeah. It is 2:27 a.m. Recording this on a Monday, technically Monday, February 7th, 2022. I got to stamp it just in case 4 years from now, the White House wants to come after me and try to censor my podcast. So yeah, got to prepare for advance time. Like, well, I know we would post that day, but when did you actually do it? It's like, I don't know. It's like, actually, you said at the beginning of your podcast. Well, it's like, then what are you fucking asking me for? You're the fucking White House. Do your research. That's what you guys would say. But anyways, welcome. I'm your host, Clint. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and suck some titties. And we have a good episode for you today, whenever this is posted. Oh, by the way, for speaking to gas stations, in case you guys, it was a few episodes ago, like a few episodes ago, the Quik Trip girl, my adventures with the Quik Trip girl. I feel like this is going to be like an update every like 4 episodes, because I may go there once a week when I get off of work to indulge in the roller grills and get myself a soda, which I really need to cut back on, but neither here nor there. But the girl that works there, who, a lovely person, but the likewise things. And I said, have a great night. And she said, likewise. The word likewise stuck in my head. And I went like a 12-minute rant one episode. Well, I'm not going to make it 12 minutes. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. So last night, I was going to Quik Trip. And just, I was actually just going to make a quick trip because I got my gas earlier. And go inside, get my drink, and this time, which is weird because the time of night, it was like 4 or 5 in the morning, they had the hot dogs, they had all the options of the the grill roller, you know what the fuck I'm talking about, and they had the complimentary toppings. Simply you go past certain night, they don't have any of the complimentary toppings that are free, because they're cleaning it or whatever the fuck. But this time, same thing. Get up to the register. She says, hey. I said, how are you tonight? She said, I'm fine. She didn't ask in return. Cool. I was like, you know what? We're going to make this one out unscathed. Not going to ruffle any feathers. I'm just going to, come on. Let me get the greeting I want. So, rings it up, 4:54. Would you like a bag? And I said, sure. I said, yeah, I'll take a bag for the food. And I'm like, what a fucking idiot. Of course, she's not going to throw my fucking drink in the bag. Of course it's for the food, you dumb fuck. So she throws it in there. I said, thank you so much. Have a great night. She said, And I said, I'm saying to myself, as I'm walking out, I'm like, well, fuck me. I just got demoted from one word that means something I don't understand to a hum. And I started thinking, holy shit, she heard my podcast. And I'm like, no, she didn't. But I'm like, what did I do? How do I get demoted? She seemed in a happier mood. And I got demoted to, How hard is it just to say, you too? Not the group, UTOO. You as well. But no, fuck me. But yeah, that is the Quik Trip girl update. Got downgraded to or demoted. Look, I don't expect to ever get promoted at Quik Trip, as a customer. But goddamn, the more I live, I'm starting to think, you know what? The customer is always right. And I'm completely against that. But you know what? I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to become that guy. I'm starting to become that guy that, like, you know what? Can I just get some timely, decent service without any attitude? I'm already sounding like a 42-year-old man. Because you know what? I think I've let this shit slide for so long. It's starting to build in me as a man. And I don't want to die at 48 because of stress that I didn't say when it bothered the fuck out of me. But you know what? It's about to become open season out here when I go to places. Any slightest bit of, if you don't say yes, sir, to me, even if you are 15 years older than me, we got a problem. I can't even say it with a straight face. But hey, you know what? Yeah. Oh, and another thing. I am not taking any more less than adequate coffees from Dunkin' Donuts. If I pay for it, I'm gonna treat it like I pay for it. It seems like when I pay for shit that I normally don't have to, it's like it's the lowest quality. It's like they put foot water in there. And I'm not even a complicated dude. I'm not a strict teacher. If I was a teacher, I'd be the teacher where like everyone gets an A, even the kid that didn't even show up for 70%. You know what? Just write one paper, pretend you give a shit for a week and a half, do a lot of studying, I'll pass you. Even though it was completely unfair to everyone else here who's consistently showed up. Could you imagine if you worked at the job where someone just showed up for like 3 weeks out of a 6-month span of your busiest times of the season, and he got paid 6 months of pay because he showed up for 3 weeks? Not exactly great teachings we have in these public school systems. But yeah, okay. So, something that's always, you see artists on Instagram, and I'm not on Instagram. You see artists on Instagram, YouTube, but I know this happens, where they quote-unquote share an unreleased quote-unquote snippet of their song, or some 20-second snippet, and people are like, that's fire. Or there'll be complete full songs from artists that they never technically released, but it's called unreleased. Or it'll be any time for type beats, like people on YouTube be like, this is a Drake, Roddy Ricch, Lil Wayne, The Baby, Tory Lanez type beat. It's like none of those artists even remotely kind of the same. They don't all rap on the same beats. Some of them completely ignore it, me included. But when I hear the thing, you can't release. Once you can't say this is an unreleased song when it's released. I'm tired of it. I know Mr. Semantics here, but it's not even semantics. It's literally there. Anytime I hear something that was put out somewhere, regardless if you released it, which I don't know how a song that you make in the studio gets just released with just like someone broke into our hard drive and released our whole Certified Lover Boy album. Like anytime, I remember the build up to Drake's album. Like 5 of the songs were already like on YouTube on like this, under like a fainted noise, and it's basically like the Jay-Z Love All one. It was all quote unquote unreleased. It's like, well, no, it was released. If I hear it, it's released. That would be like me saying, that'd be like me putting this episode of this podcast on fucking YouTube on a complete different profile, but I never put it on the main one. And then someone finds it, be like, hey, where is this on your page? It's like, oh, it's not because it's unreleased. It's like, what are you doing? You're just poking the stick out to see if someone likes it, and then if they don't like it after 3 weeks, delete it. It's like, it was released. If as a consumer, I hear whatever you released, you can't put, this is an unreleased blank artist song. It's like, no, maybe they didn't release it. Well, obviously they had to. Someone had to release it. It had to be them if they're the one making the song. Can we just stop with this, oh, well, that was unreleased music? It's like, no. If 100,000+ people heard something, it is released. I hate to break it to you. It isn't something that you played at a party for 200 people at an album release party, and everyone in that room, like, yeah, we all heard it, but technically it won't be out for 2 days for the world to hear. If the world has access to it with a quick Google search on SoundCloud or on YouTube, and your voice is in it, it's released. I'm sorry. But fuck me. But yeah, unreleased music. It's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. It's literally the definition of contradiction. And speaking of contradiction, so apparently there's this I forgot the exact story, which if I'm going to cover a story like this, I should probably be a little bit more precise in my analysis. But I remember I saw one this past week. It was on one of my Google News things, right? Which means they know what I like. And apparently there's a lot of quote unquote allegations against Hugh Hefner. Apparently, the Playboy Mansion. Apparently, it was exactly what you would think it would be. It was a very sexual harassment environment. It's like, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, like, all the girls there are literally trying to get on Playboy to be nude for dudes to put on their walls. Well, no one really does that anymore. But for dudes, trust me, when you're in the Playboy magazine or the articles, whatever the fuck it is, I've actually never really opened a Playboy. I can do the math though. I have a good idea what it's about. It's for the artistry. It's like, no, it's not. It's kind of like the ESP and the body issue. They try to call it, it's body image beautiful. It's like, nah, I mean, you're just basically doing everything but showing the nudes. But like, we could put it together what the body looks like, which I think is cool. Empowerment. Woo. But what do you think? You think the Playboy Mansion, when you looked at it from afar, did you ever think woman empowerment? I didn't. You know what the good thing about the Playboy, really the business aspect and really what it is that it really shows, apparently it was a toxic misogynist environment. It's like, yeah. You aren't there, as all the girls, you aren't there because you looked at Hugh Hefner and you're like, you know, if this guy was a mechanic and went home in his bathrobe and petted a cat, I would love this man. It's like, no, we know the deal here. And it's not even like just about money. Like, I don't really think everything in life has to be about that. There's an appeal to the man. The man's like, hey, get over here, bitches. You know, Hugh Hefner, he really kind of does look like, well, I don't think Hugh Hefner is dead, is he? I should have. Yeah, he's got to be dead by now. Stan Lee's dead. And they both look very similar. They both have similar impacts in their business when you really break it down. Magazines, comic books, articles, empowering people in positions who without them would have never. It's just fascinating to me. It's like you're not joining Playboy because you really think like, oh, this, I'm really going to like put a great mark for a woman here. It's like, no, you're not. You're literally posing nudes in front of cameras with a bunch of dude doing the flash on you. Huh. Stanley. Actually, that may be DC. Anyways, but yeah. It's just fascinating to me. Like, when you think about every girl that's ever been on Playboy, what typically happens, right? They get a reality show, and they build an image to get a reality show. They build an image to be in paparazzi so they can do public speaking engagements. And it's really, you know, I will say, being a Playboy bunny is really like being the president of the United States. Hear me out. Is that after you are done with the Playboy Mansion, you will always be attached to it. The same way the president will always be attached to the White House, regardless. And there will be so much opportunities for them for life. Like, presidents make way more after they leave the office than before. They basically are guaranteed $1 million speaking engagements. They're guaranteed like book deals, this, that, and they speak at some university for $5 million, all because they were the president. And you're good for life. Playboy Bunny, you could write books about it. It's like, yeah, oh, really? A freaking mansion where a bunch of girls are running around nude, probably doing drugs, a lot of alcohol involved. And you're surprised that men do bad things. Like, Jenny McCarthy got a job on The View, not for being an actress. And I know she, like, dressed down, used to be a Playboy bunny, and all this shit. She's a whole different person, and that's great. But, when most people see Jenny McCarthy, oh, now she does, like, the New Year's Eve shit. It's like, okay. But where'd she get her start? Playboy. It's just funny to me how people voluntarily put themselves in these environments and are surprised when those environments are exactly what the environments are. I don't know. It'd be like walking manually through an automatic car wash and be mad when those fucking flapping mop things just slap you in the fucking face. And then you sue them when they have signs all around the building like, hey, do not walk in here unless you are in your vehicle, and keep your windows up. But you just walk in there willy-nilly because you want to be funny. Then you get slapped in the fucking face, get a concussion, have brain damage for the rest of your life, and your family sues the car wash for $18 million, which they haven't even made $18 million in the 4 years that they've been in business. And I'm not talking about $18 million profit. I mean, they literally have not made $18 million because they're charging $3 for car washes. Like, but, you know, they're telling you the environment here is the environment. Like, the Playboy Mansion and the Playboy, I don't even know, like, I won't even call it business, but, like, the Playboy is more of, like, a fantasy brought to real life. And honestly, your duty as a Playboy bunny is to fulfill others' fantasies. Oh, that kind of sounds like a dominatrix type of shit. But that's not really the case here. But yeah, I don't know. I just find it toxic and misogynist. It's like, what did you expect it to be? I know we live in these new times, but also there's got to be common sense for people that put themselves in positions and they write books to capitalize on the experience that was quote unquote terrible for them. But it was so terrible they stayed in for 11 years and they wait till the person who dies could actually defend themselves, speak, but they wait till after they die so they get more, probably his percentage of the fortune. I don't know. Sounds like someone taking advantage of a vulnerable man. Oh, Jesus. I don't know, man. I don't know. All right, next topic. Yeah, you know, I realized I actually try to see, look, I actually try to prepare some topics for today. I actually thought, like, not even prepare, but instead of just letting it naturally come out, this is why I don't prepare. Like, I feel rigid. I feel like I'm not really in it. I'm a little tired, but I'm not that tired. Get your head in the game. But I wrote these 6 things I wrote could have filled like a whole podcast. And it's already 24 fucking minutes. And I only have like 2 left. And I wrote down the simple thing. Typically, I write mental notes. I write it on my phone. And I just remember them. And I let the story come out naturally. Because I'm a storytelling podcast. But now I feel like I'm just telling bullet points. And I'm forgetting the humor and loopholes in it. Oh, maybe it'll sound better on the playback. I don't know. But anyways, this is why I'll never do this shit again. And I'm not talking about the topic part. I'm telling about my podcast. But yeah. You know what? Fuck it. Throw the phone away. Who cares? Everyone stop listening at this point. But yeah. You know what's crazy to me? Oh, now we're getting into it. Now I'm passionate. Your boy's in the passion of Christ. Never understood that tall passion of Christ. Because if if the passion of Christ was supposed to be sacrifice, how come no one's had to do it since? And we're all disciples of Christ. I don't know. Sean Kingston was on to something. Suicidal. But anyways, we're gonna move past that because this just goes to show the old adage is true that all nice podcasts do finish last. Because there's this podcast out there, and I don't like shitting on other podcasts that aren't really huge. Because when you're so huge, regardless of what some idiot like me says, I could say something, it's not going to make a dent, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's just an opinion. But these people, they're not huge, but they got a much more substantial following than me. And it pisses me off because I randomly, in my algorithm on YouTube, like once in a while you get these random things and it makes no sense. Because I haven't watched anything close related to this shit. Yes, I did say shit because it's a little foreshadowing. So there is this podcast called Headgum, right? And I already know anyone with their comments, and they have, well, maybe you should do more of what they're doing, because obviously what they're doing is working. It's like, yeah, you know what? If that's what's considered working, I'm good. Not everything that works is, you know what? There's child predators that are really good at luring kids. I'm good at not being good at that. Okay. But there's this podcast called Headgum. It typically consists of 4 people. Most of them have been Zoom. And I randomly clicked on the episode, right? Because it kept bumping in my algorithm. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this shit's popping. Maybe YouTube for 4 days straight. Every time I go on my homepage, it would be like, here, you want to watch episode 82 of the Headgum podcast. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. If you're going to force it down my throat. And by the way, here's the problem with like algorithms and promoting something is that when you promote it to me, I'm going to honestly be a little frustrated. I'm going to go into it with finding more of what I find annoying in it or don't like, instead of if I just come across something and it's pleasantly surprising. Because if you force it down my throat, it's like, you know what? All right, fine. You want to keep telling me this show's great? You want to keep telling me a lot of people engage with it? You know what? I'm going to engage with it. But I'm going to go in and I'm going to completely not give the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume, you know what, YouTube? You know what the fuck you're talking about. You know what the people like. You know what I like. And you know what? They missed the mark. Because I listened to it, and I know I do dumb openings. I literally listen to this one dude for 4 minutes, and it's a podcast between, it was like a girl, 2 dudes, they're like 5'7", who's probably like, you know, they kind of have this, they think they're a lot funnier than they are. And I understand I may apply, but I bet you one of them couldn't talk on by themselves on the show. Because all this dude talked about for a minute and a half was what he liked on his Chipotle burrito. All they do was pick basic ass fucking topics. They pick hot topics like Chipotle. And I know I talked about Chipotle, but I talked about a specific incident with Chipotle and their overpriced shit. These people are just like, everyone likes Chipotle. Here's a picture of me and my guacamole. If you put the Headgum in the sponsor for Chipotle, you'll get 10% off your $18 burrito next time. It's like, you know what, man? Oh, now I'm potting. Which is something they felt. They never got in a potting mood. I never felt they were passionate. And you know what bothered me the most? I watched like a introduction to the podcast thing where it's kind of like how it developed. Originally, it supposedly started before quarantine. And they were supposed to they had like a professional studio. Like, they were paying for a studio, or a studio was paying them to do this shit, right? And their audio quality is good, even for the Zoom stuff. I'll give them that. It's probably better audio quality. And you know what? One thing I will take away from them, like all bullshit aside, is that it goes to show, and this may sound like it's a backhand comment, but actually is, because if your audio and your presentation of something is really well done, it will have people give you the benefit of doubt and keep listening longer, even if what you're talking about is complete nothing. And you could say I talk about nothing, but let me tell you, it's not. There's a lot more relationability. At least when I say something, you've probably been like, yeah. These people are just talking about their dirty fucking toenails. Like, literally. I listened to like 30 minutes of a whole podcast because I tried to get through it, and I just couldn't. It's nothing personal against them, but it just goes to show that. And by the way, for any podcasters out there, please stop with the overuse of special effects in conversation. Like during this thing, they kept doing applauses for saying absolute nothing, or when some dude would make a terrible, not even funny pun, corny joke, and I think I'm a good judge of what's a good pun and corny joke. I literally look, I'm like, are you fucking kidding? Like, to me, when a podcast with four people, if you have to use special effects with four people to keep the audience engaged, I mean, Jesus Christ, talk about something. I know I tried to read off the topic shit, and it's weird as fuck. I don't like it. This is why I just go off the top, and typically as I'm talking, I remember shit as my observations of the day or of the week go, and that's what I do. But when you have planned out shit, or if you don't, and you really think with four people, it's crazy enough, because I actually think as one person, as I've done this by myself, I actually think with one person, you can go off the top, quote unquote, more freestyle, quote unquote, because behind every freestyle you've thought about before. That's why everyone, when they get the dumb thing, that was a written. It's like, yeah. It's like, and it may not have been written. He may have just recycled bars in his head by repeating to himself over and over. So just because someone, like people say, like there's the old rumor, Jay-Z doesn't write any of his lyrics. Or he never has, or he hasn't, and God knows how long, right? It's like, yeah, some people just have different memories. But if he wrote it down, that doesn't make his lyrics or rhymes any less prevalent. Like, that's the dumb shit. But anyways. But they would have these random, like every 2 minutes, or be just this random for like 8 seconds. And it would be overbearing in the middle of like nothing. It's like with four people, if you have a lot of blank spaces in a podcast, maybe, just maybe work on your like connection. And the fact that they have like a professional audio, they if they were about to be in a studio, but I guess they live in California because COVID and stuff. I don't know what any of them do. But for a very low, I think here's the thing. Just because someone doesn't quote unquote prepare for their podcast, that doesn't mean it's low effort. If there's a lot of real shit and substance in it, what I consider low effort is, all right, we're going to do the same amount of time, and we're just going to fill that time like we're basically on the clock at a job, and be like, I'm just going to go chill in this back corner for 15 minutes, be on my phone for 8 type of shit. Like, where you're literally just cashing a check, but you're not really at work. You're just kind of walking around. I'm not saying anything about my job. Just saying. Just, of course, generally speaking. But, because, that could be a slippery slope. When people always say, like, oh, you guys forgot a few hours on my check. It's like, yeah, we looked at the cameras. We did the math. We approximately saw your workload. You didn't really work about 5 hours of your times you were clocked in. So, you're welcome. Imagine they start doing that where they actually start tracking how much work you do and pays you actually according to how much work you do. Whew, a lot of people be broke as fuck. Anyways, but yeah, it just goes to show nice podcasts like me finish last and bullshit where they just talk about what's on their fucking Chipotle burrito for 2 minutes, their toenails, with no real story, nothing funny about it. And they're just like, oh, whoa, what did Susie say about your toenails? It's like, who fucking cares? And this comes from someone who, I understand, no one may care about anything I say. But it's just a guy. These people are supposed to know something that the rest of us don't. And I never, because, look, they're a little bit higher than me in the podcast statosphere, but it just goes to show, it's the great line that Drake said. Shit, what's the fucking song? Fuck. Is it Lemon Pepper Freestyle? Or is it Wants and Needs? One of those, where he's like, just goes to show that talent doesn't. Jesus, it's such a fucking great line. I believe I went through this process on another podcast where I forgot the fucking line and the song. But he said, talent doesn't always win. I felt like I'm sounding like the dude who was on the Alabama show, the Alabama newscast, where he's like, years ago I was hitting in the years ago, and he just couldn't start because he just tumbled up on his words, which I actually feel for the man. I actually think when you really look at that, it's only funny because he was able to, I guess, talk about it anyways after. But like, really, you want to talk about anxiety and shit, and people just laugh at it. But hey, we'll make exceptions for what's right, to laugh at. It's okay though. But it just goes to show. And maybe the format of the show is literally Headgum. So maybe it's just like, if you swallow gum, it just sits in your stomach. And that's what listen to their podcast. And I even read the comment section. I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's something I'm missing. And it was a lot of, man, the fact that people call this a podcast, where it's not even, you could talk about nothing and be entertaining. You could talk about nothing and the way you talk can be interesting. And sometimes you could talk about a lot of shit, but your voice or your audio can be very distracting. But anyway, back to the thing where I said, one thing I will take from them is that there is some like good audio and presentation will get you in the door. But at the end of the day, how good your shit is what's going to actually long term and stuff. But if you have really bad audio, if you have really bad presentation or lack of, more than likely, the problem is it doesn't matter how good your shit is. If you can't even get in the door, if people won't even give it a chance because it looks like you put little effort to it. And sometimes the presentation, but my problem is when the presentation has so much more effort put into it than the actual thing that I click on. I honestly think that's worse than clickbait. I'll say it. Because I was thinking about this. People get mad about clickbait, but you clicked on it. And you can say that's wrong. And clickbait is typically, here's what I consider clickbait, is where the video says, I don't even want to put a random person's name because I don't even want to put that in the atmosphere. And I'm not a big, Libra, Zodiac type of tantric, voodoo type of person. But let's say insert person name has died. You click on it, and it is some person in a monotone voice with a picture of that person that says, they feel like they have died inside because now they're divorced with XYZ. It's like, see, you didn't finish the sentence, man. You kind of left me. Or if it's just complete, nah, that's not at all what is said. It's not even all, like if it's like a picture, a cat kissing a cat licking a snake, and then you click on it and it's a fucking donkey fucking a moose. It's like, huh. I mean, I guess it's in the animal kingdom, so that's the way you classify as Carl Linnaeus. Taxonomy. But I think, honestly, a form of clickbait is when the presentation of what your thing is doesn't remotely match the vibe or the tone of your show. I think that's a real thing. I think that's just as bad because think about it, like, if you put a presentation that this is a professionally put studio and all this, and then I click on your video and it's 4 people on a Zoom talking about Johnny getting a 3.9 GPA in school and how, oh, it's better than yours, and it's jibber jabber, and everyone in the comment section is just like, Jesus, this is like a combination of, this is so intolerable that I keep coming back every week. Which I honestly think if the dislike button was available, I honestly don't think they would keep posting. I honestly think they would just hide it because I don't think the like and dislike ratio, which by the way, I have a theory about the like and dislike ratio. Have you ever noticed that actually with the videos that you've seen a long time before the like and dislike, and let's say you watched a video that had like 4 million views and it had 85,000 likes, right? For some reason, ever since the dislike button, that same video, I don't know what it is. It's like, it will be like down to 32,000 likes. It's like everything lowered. It's kind of like, hey, we're going to give everyone a chance. If you liked or disliked a video, you could take it back once we change this feature. I never got the notice, but I guess a lot of people have taken it back. But yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. I also think most people don't really engage in that aspect anymore because what's the point in voting for something you can't see the result of? Why am I going to click the dislike or like button if I don't even really get to see an accurate result of it? Not to go back into that like and dislike shit, whatever. It's over and done with. It hasn't really changed the viewing experience because typically with anything that involves change, we all bitch about it for a while and then we kind of just get accustomed because we're still going to use this shit. And honestly, transitioning, because I feel like it kind of, I would be remiss. And honestly, when I was thinking tonight, I wasn't really going to talk about it because it's a weird thing to, here, let me set it up, right? I was hesitant to talk about it, not because, I'm afraid to talk about it or nothing, but just because it's like, you know what? I feel like the situation speaks for itself, but at the same time, it's like, since I've talked about this person a good bit on here, and he's a very influential figure, whether you like him or not, I would be remiss to completely ignore it, right? So there's a compilation video, well, not a compilation, but basically, it's clips of Joe Rogan's old podcasts, where he said the word, and with the ER, which does hold a little bit more weight than saying it with the A, because say with the A, people could try to justify it's friendly and stuff. You can't really try to make that justification with the ER, even in context, even in storytelling type of thing. And as someone who's a pro Joe Rogan, it's a little disheartening. It's hard to think because, you could try to say, well, times were different. But just because times are different, that doesn't mean you couldn't be different from the times. And as someone who's such a free thinker and a self-disciplined person type of thing, you can't stress all that, but then use words that say, oh, well, it's just the times. Like, here's what I will say about it, though, right? I'm going to tell a little bit of a backstory about, I'm actually not surprised because I actually heard it before. Yes. So when Joe Rogan first went to Spotify, right? It was probably like a couple months after he completely moved over to Spotify. And typically as someone, I think this was technically before I started my podcast, right? Because I really wanted to, I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I was really interested. I wanted to do one, figuring it out. I had a failed one with a friend. Neither here nor there. You learn and you live. You live and you learn. Doesn't really matter. Fuck him. And I like to see the improvements of like a podcast that's been around for a couple years, has done a lot of episodes, whatever the hell. I like to, let's say a show has like 108 episodes out, like this. I actually randomly said that number, probably because it's the beginning, revisionist history. And I like to see like, oh wow, this is what it is now. I wonder what the first episodes. I wonder what they improved on, right? Could have been the style of the show, the structure, the audio. And typically it's everything across the board. There's more of a structure, there's the comfortability. Typically the effects are better, the audio experience, the visual experience is better, especially for these bigger program ones, right? And I did that for a lot of different podcasts. And because it's almost like, to me, podcasting is what I study. This is what I'm into. This is what I'm interested in. So you study what's there. And you do the math of, okay, before and after. Okay, what did they improve? And what can I take away? How can I avoid even wasting my time making those, useless mistakes type of thing? Like mistakes that could be prevented, and your starting point is much better than most people that start, right? Whatever. And I did the same with Joe Rogan, right? So I was listening to a few of his early episodes. To be honest, they're pretty hard. They're pretty hard to listen to, just because it used to be just him on a Ustream with Brian Redband, and I don't really think Redband's that interesting. Which, that's kind of fucked up. Well, not fucked up. He basically fired Redband because his producer / co-host or whatever, who was in charge of the audio and everything. Which, if you see him on Kill Tony, you can see like, oh, I can see why he got fired. And it's crazy. Immediately, he fired Brett Band, a pretty good friend of his. Sometimes business friends don't mix. And he's like, look, man, it's just not good enough. Then he hired Jamie. And next thing you know, the way Jamie did the audio, the clips and everything, producing the show, the whole show trajectory and everything about the show changed. And that's when things really started to progress with the show. But enough of the backstory. So I would listen to certain guests with certain guests that with people I would at least kind of give a shit about, even if it was not the greatest quality. And I listened to one with Dane Cook. It couldn't be later than episode 18 or something, right? I remember it was one night I was sick at home, head was hurting like fuck. I just turned off all the lights and I just played this episode laying down in bed. And there was a part about, I remember exactly, because I rewound it like 3 times to make sure I heard what I heard. And there was some with Dan Cook as a guest, where he said something I don't think he used the ER in this instance. Not that makes really a well of a difference, to be honest. But he was making a reference, and it actually may have been the same Planet of the Apes reference type of shit. Either way, it was something that I was sick, I was hot and cold, yes and no, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like, I all of a sudden, it was like, well, what? I paused it, and I was like, he said, like, and it was an ongoing bit for like a good more than a few minutes, let's just say. And you could just hear like the guests kind of uncomfortably laughing. Someone else was in the room kind of uncomfortably going with it. But it was a weird thing, because I'm like, wait, what? I rewound it a couple times, like, oh. And I'm thinking, one, how has this not been exposed, quote unquote, for the light of day, right? And I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe it has been. Maybe it has been, and I just haven't heard about it. Like, I didn't look up, does anyone know about this episode? Like, I assumed that it was one of those things where, like, maybe it was out there, or maybe, honestly, most people didn't care. And that's why I was surprised when I was like, oh, people didn't know about this. But honestly, I just kind of assumed that a lot of people knew about it, and They assumed with the move to Spotify, I assume Spotify knew about it because they reviewed every episode and all of his content. And I will, here's one interesting, and this is not excusing because I believe it's separate. I do find it interesting though, and I think it kind of shows where businesses stand these days. When you really think these businesses care about activism or racism or any causes of LGBTQ community, here's what I'll say. I think one of the reasons, because at the same time, Spotify is sticking with Joe Rogan through all of this, right? That's one thing. I also think if Spotify cared as much as they cared about, these big businesses cared as much as they outcry. We don't condone this on this. We do. It's like when Joe Rogan moved to Spotify, they literally removed episodes with this one guest who had 2 episodes because they talked very in depth about, his views and his research on transgenderism. And he basically trying to, it could have been he or she, I don't remember 100%, but basically his view was basically trans people are just confused people. That's his view, not mine. And they removed those episodes because it was heavy backlash from people in the community and all that. And it's like, you know what? Now I'll remove the episodes. It's not worth getting all this other shit for all the good he's going to bring, right? Okay. Then I remember because it was as the conversion was happening fully to Spotify, because Spotify reviewed everything. Employees were mad about this. They were mad about the conspiracy episodes, I believe, with Eddie Bravo. They wanted to get rid of the Alex Jones ones, but I don't think they did. I think they may have done one, but not the other. And there was plenty of others where basically if it didn't align with certain values and all this stuff, we're going to get rid of the episodes. Like, to me, cutting episodes doesn't really do anything in the day, but I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother the fuck out of me. It's like, whatever. Give me 100 million. You could cut 70 of my episodes. I don't give a fuck, which that means it would only leave you with 38 to play right now. But hey, 100 mil, have it. Own it. I don't give a fuck. But it does, one thing it did bring my attention to all that. I was thinking, I'm like, so they cared about all these conspiracies and they cared about having doctors, psychologists, and now with doctors, it has to do with the thing. I'm not even gonna mention it because I don't even want to get, tracked in the algorithm, whatever the fuck. But like even Jordan Peterson received recent blowback for things, and he has for different various things, but never to the recent level, speaking on certain things. And it's weird to me that, so the Spotify employees, Spotify company, they reviewed all these episodes. Look, they pay the guy $100 million. If I'm paying someone $100 million, I'm reviewing every fucking thing. I'm having my employees watch every minute of every fucking podcast because that's what I'm paying them to do. I didn't know 100% what I'm getting. That's just protecting your investment, knowing that we're gonna start fresh from any props. We're not gonna bring shit over that's not necessary. And it just goes to show, Spotify employees and Spotify in general did all this research on shit of his show. Which goes to show they either heard the shit and didn't give a fuck. Because maybe they don't give a fuck about racism like they say they do. Maybe most companies don't really care about racism. And I was thinking about this, and this is really, it sounded like, holy shit, Clint, I was really thinking, as a big business, if you had to choose one, which you should never have to choose one, you should just be inclusive in general. But if you had to choose one, would you rather be protected on the side of racism? And just, in this case, let's just call, would you rather be okay caring about black people or caring about transgenderism? And I was really thinking, but to be honest, I don't think most companies really care a whole lot about a lot of the things that are activists today, to be honest. I think there's a lot of exploitation. There's a lot of wrongdoing. Because then now there's a situation where there's the India Marie girl who kind of exposed the compilation video of all the shit. And she's going to remove her music from Spotify. And I'm not even being funny when I say this. Not even being this. I never heard of her before then. So I'm going to say I don't think her taking her music off is really going to make a dent. I think it would take someone like... It would take the biggest artists that actually make any decent amount of money on there and make Spotify a lot of money. As someone's saying, basically it would take like the Drakes, the Billie Eilish, the Olivia Rodriguez. It would take Kendrick Lamar. It would take the Beyoncés. It would have to be one of those artists. The Justin Biebers. The current relevant art. It would take a banding together or even just a few be like, yeah, we're taking our shit off of yours. For there to be any real change about stuff. And more importantly, then they'll really see what do these companies, streaming music companies or media companies, what do they really care for based off what they're saying? And I think it does expose a real thing in big business. Is that a lot of businesses say they care about things, but when shit hits the fan or when money's on the line and people say it's just business, like, okay, well, you're going to make this temporary business decision and you're going to walk away with money, but in the long term, people are not going to work with you. Except if you offer them like $60 million, and a lot of people will smile it up. But, you know, honestly, as a personal Joe Rogan fan, it is disappointing. You know, it was disappointing then, but I just honestly assumed everyone kind of knew about it, and that was part of the controversy that everyone was already talking about when he moved there. And I assumed that was just part of the baggage, but I was wrong, because I guess a lot of people didn't know about it. It is disappointing. You know, I'm not a believer that there's really ever a context, a nuance. There's never a reason, even if you're reciting something, even if you're reading a book. I don't think there's ever a time and place for a white person to say it, to say the word. With whether it's the slang of the A or the ER. And that brings in the whole, you know, people, I think I talked about in the pod, so I don't want to repeat it before, but it was like Quentin Tarantino with Django Unchained or The Hateful Eight. It's like, this is a white dude writing all this shit, right? And apparently, you know, like Neil Brennan, the comedian, wrote on the Chappelle Show, a lot of those skits involve language. But he wrote it on paper, but, you know, it's like he's not saying it, but he's definitely portraying, you know, in some cases, even though they're cleverly written and cleverly put together, I'm not shitting on the Chappelle Show, it definitely is, you know, he's writing through a stereotype vision, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure Chappelle revised like, all right, yeah, no, you got like this. I'm pretty sure Chappelle had his hands all over it. But, you know, that stuff can always get a little iffy when it comes to writing something. You're not saying it, but you're basically writing what you think type of thing. Or you're writing a perspective that you think is that. And that's where it could kind of get dangerous when you're speaking for someone else's race, or you're speaking for another gender, you're speaking for another human being in general. Because there's so many life experiences that lead to shit. But my personal belief, and it's no secret, I don't think there's ever really a reason. I've told the story about my friend who dated a white girl. I don't know why I wear, but he was dating someone who was white. And it honestly felt like more of the reason why she was dating him was because she just kind of wanted that nudge, that kind of comfort to be like, say what you really feel, honey. Say what you really feel. And it's a lot of behind rhetoric shit. And it's like, oh, you can see behind, and some was pretty blatant. It was not deceptive. It was not even clever. Like, damn, you can't even be cleverly, like, kind of biased. Can you at least be clever in your bias and just, like, a little racism? Like, can you just be a little clever with it? Like, some of you just blame with it where it's not even, like, it's so cartoonish. But yeah, no, like, seriously, though, I would be remiss. I've talked about Joe Rogan so much being such a positive influence for really not letting media and free speech, and I know free speech all comes with price. But what I mean by that is being on for free, basically not having where all media you have to say one thing or we're going to get rid of you. And I think now he's fallen to a lot of hot water with that. And I think this is honestly the worst controversy of them all by far. I really don't think the medical stuff and his views is really matters really at all. But I do think this because I don't know how it would be because I've never said it and I don't plan on it. I don't know when it would ever. I don't know how, like, as a man, I feel like when you put that out there, like when it's out there, you said that, and especially various multiple times and comfortable telling stories. You can say you were high, you can say you're drunk, whatever. I don't know how you walk, look, maybe he's got fuck you money, and I get that, and having fuck you money makes walking around a little bit easier with baggage. But it would just be hard, like, because you're gonna work with people who that word affects greatly, and maybe the who affects, more important, maybe they forgive you, maybe they say that's not how you are. I'm gonna let the people who that word affects make judgment of how much that word affects, because I'll just let people who are affected by that word make judgments of how they deal with him and how they view him. But I would just say as a person, like, I can handle side looks for a lot of things. That's one where if I walk down in public and there was recordings of me saying that, like a Morgan Wall and shit like that, that would be a hard one. Like, that would be one of those where I would be it would be hard to walk around as. Because you're not just saying an opinion. You're not just saying something that's controversial. You're not just saying something that's going against the grain. You said something with a lot of historical hurt, context, and chances are probably somewhere deep in your lines of your bloodlines probably was a beneficiary of. And I know that's really like me, I'm gonna be honest, like I would be scared to find out, because it doesn't change anything about me, but it certainly brings, like, oh, no matter how good you do, there's still something in your bloodlines that's like, oh. And I think, especially if you're someone that has friends who are black, if you've ever dated someone or been with someone and cared, which I would assume everyone has cared deeply about someone who's not just their race of any type of relationship, but someone who has been in love with women who are black, that would be, like, that's one of those things, it takes, I wouldn't say it takes for you to date someone out of your race to date someone who's black to truly understand that, because you should honestly know how hurtful and how real that can make someone feel. But I do think there's something about when you are with someone in settings in public and you get the views of interracial, and the shame of it really you get from people who look like you and people who look like them, and how you're viewed. You can just feel it. there's something about when you hear that, you feel it different, you know? Like, to me, anytime I hear it, even when someone's just being in jest and it's some white person, and even if it's with the approval of their friends who happen to be black, to me, wow, look, Clint getting all uber serious here. But to me, it's still highly uncomfortable because I would never even think about saying it. I think that's one of those things, like, you have to want to say it. You have to try harder to say it. Words like that doesn't just slip out of your mind or your mouth unless you have truly thought about it. You truly have said it before. But maybe you've slipped it out in a setting where you didn't want to say it. You wouldn't want it to be said. But there was other settings where you were okay with saying it. And I'm not the judge of what's the right setting to say what, which I think it's kind of my point, is that there's really no right setting, context, or nuance for someone that looks like me to say it. There just isn't. And to me, and here's another kind of clinking concept. I really think a white person being an activist for black rights is really, it's really self-serving, because I don't really think as a white person your duty is to really talk about how great you are, because it kind of is like the white hope syndrome. It's like, I'm the one that's going to lead equality. It's like, no, you should be supportive and be there, but not make it about you, because you were literally trying to make, look how great I am, on a cause that doesn't really directly affect me. Which, to me, it's really no different. You know what's really interesting when people talk about vulture and appropriation? You know what I think is actually, I think in music, I actually don't think it's that big of a deal. But I do think if we're going to go down the road and say that is a big deal, I do think when it comes to YouTube videos, where people make money and monetize off it, when you have people who are not minorities, when you have people talking about issues that aren't directly affecting them, but yet they make money off it. It's like if someone is talking about, I don't know, I don't want to make everything black and white, literally or figuratively. But like if I were to make a channel, right, me, and start making a channel about civil rights history or activism of the stuff, and then me, a white person, making money about the suffrage, here's a better example. It'd be like a guy making money talking about how much women aren't nearly paid as enough as men, and like the 77 cents for what a man is and all that stuff. And then they make a YouTube channel bitching about all that shit. And it's like a guy making a feminist channel and talking about how it's so unfair for women in society. And yet you just made $8,000 off a video, and not a single cent of that is going to go towards anything of feminism to benefit women. So when you want to make it about race, if a white activist is making money off movements that are supposed to be for black empowerment, black positivity, inequality, I just think it's a little self-serving. I think it's highly ironic. And I think you're the definition of a culture vulture, because you are literally profiting off of something that you don't have to directly feel of what your activism is for to begin with, quote unquote. I just think there's a lot of people out here there's a lot of people out here trying to appropriate and vulture stuff, but it's more hidden, and they'll be the same ones preaching about how wrong it is. But yeah, on their channel, they're doing the same thing. Not calling anyone out, but it's out there. So in conclusion, because my camera's about to shut off, because that's how we do it here. The camera shuts off. It's disappointing. And it's definitely, it made me take a step back and kind of reassess what I really think of Joe Rogan. Not just because of the word. Because again, like I said, I heard it before. I heard him say it before, like a long time in older episodes. But it definitely does just kind of, maybe this is why we don't put people on pedestals, regardless of maybe what good they're doing in the bigger scheme of things in media. Because you just don't know. And I don't know. All right, we'll just wrap it up there. That's enough of serious talk. That's episode 108 of the Off and Beat podcast. Like, subscribe, and suck some titties. And that was not a great pod. Gosh, never preordained. I hate that I had so many good topics, and I botched like the first three. But once I got the shitting on Headgum, oh man, my head was gone. Gum, 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 baby, gum, gum.